Hello students, good morning. I am Ashwini Kulkarni. I belong to an organization called Pragati Abhiyan. It is a Nashik based development organization and we are involved in various government programs reaching out to people and understanding its implementation. We work mostly in the tribal areas of Nashik district. Today, we will be discussing on the social audit of government programs. Social audit itself is a new phenomena, so let us try and understand where does it come from. When we try to understand why social audit, where does it come from, what is the thought process behind it, we need to look into the fact that we are a democracy. And our democracy in India has the basis of our constitution that defines and tells us and guides us in how the democracy will be run in a country, huge country, diverse country like India. And like we have said and like we have learned in all through our school life is that this is democracy is of the people. It belongs to people. Everybody else who runs the government are public servants. That's how we have always looked at democracy. Now, what do we mean by democracy? Democracy is a concept. Democracy, we understand, is through its institutions. How the institutions are run, how rules are formed, how rules are followed by the institutions, by the people, is how we understand democracy. So, these institutions, which are meant for the people of the country, how are they run, is what finds the basis in our understanding of social audits. Democracy in India also tells us, our constitution tells us that our government is a welfare state. It is supposed to do, it has a mandate to do welfare programs for the people who are vulnerable, who are marginalized, who need help. It also has the mandate to take up development programs. Now, how do we understand how these programs are being run? We know legislature forms these policies and the laws, and then the bureaucracy implements them. So these are the two pillars of our democracy which are very important for us because we have to deal with it on a daily basis. And we as citizens have to understand all these pillars and the government programs to make it run better, because ultimately citizens are the ones who own, if at all, who own the democracy and the country. Now, when we say that government has to run programs, government has to run institutions which will run programs, what we mean is that the administration, the management, the way the government runs is the governance part of it. And in the governance part, in this last couple of decades, we have understood that there are three important aspects of governance. One, participatory, that it has to find spaces, find mechanisms to get people to participate in the processes of governance, in the process of administration, in the processes of decision making, be what it may. Accountability. When a government program is run, who is it accountable to? Is it accountable only to the parliament? Is it accountable to the donors or where the money is coming from? Or is it accountable to the people for whom it is being run? So accountability is another aspect which is important, and then comes the aspect of transparency. What do we mean by transparency? This is a very crucial part in democracy, that whatever the government is doing, whatever the way programs are being run, what is the budget for it, how is it being run, what are the cost overruns, what is the cost distribution in terms of how much are we spending on administrative costs, how much are we spending on programs, how are the wages being distributed. All this is important because transparency is the basis to ask accountability. If the government is not open about how the programs are being designed, how the programs are being executed, be it welfare programs, be it development programs, be it its own institutions, once the transparency levels are set in, then there is a possibility of accountability. Otherwise, what will happen is that accountability may not come through. Since we do not know what is happening, what do we hold government accountable for if we do not know what it is meant to be doing? And here comes the idea of participation. that I will participate with the government, engage with the government, not just to complain, not just to confront, not just to say that things are going wrong. I will work with the government to say how things can be run, what policies need to be given importance, what priorities are important. Is poverty the basic thing? What do we mean by development? What kind of development? Development for whom? The questions that we ask as citizens to the government through whatever mechanism, through whatever media, through whatever processes, is what becomes participation of the citizens with the government, engaging with the government in a very fruitful way. There have been a lot of social legislations in this particular period of 2005 to 2013. There is a little bit of history to that. In 1991, India opened up, our economy opened up, lot of space and processes were changed to accommodate more of enterprises. Private enterprises were given a lot of importance. It's so-called unleashed the economy. Economy had a good run. GDP growth was seen. And by 10, 15 years, 10, 12 years, we could see very good growth. We could see very good revenues with the government. But at the same time, there was one very big concern, which was also a big challenge. And that was that in all this development process, in all this higher GDP growth, what we realized is that the poorest of the poor, the vulnerable, the marginalized are losing out. They are not part of this growth process. They are not part of this growth vehicle that was taking people ahead in their economic status, in their social status. Now, how do we understand this? When we were learning all this, a lot of people, lot of academicians came up with their understanding of what was happening to the growth rate and how the growth was being distributed amongst the citizens. And there it came to the fore that the vulnerable, the poor are losing out. And hence, we saw a list of a spate of various social legislations that came up post 2005. One, of course, was the right to information. Then came Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Act. Then came the National Food Security Act. Then came the Food Rights Act. There was National Food Security Act came much later in 2012 or so. But there was right to education. There was right to information. There was a health mission that was launched, National Health Mission. So various, or whether it is health, whether it is education, or various livelihood sector, we saw a good number of well-intentioned programs, schemes, and acts being formed during this period. So there were revenues, there was intention, and the programs were unfolded on the ground. Now, once we see all this, once we see that crores and crores of rupees are being spent on these programs so that there is poverty alleviation, so that there is more well-being amongst the people, it is meant for people in the rural areas, in the tribal areas, in all those social groups which have been marginalized, we have been unjust with various social groups. Now, the idea was that how do we reach out to them? And these programs were meant to reach out to them, were meant to reduce their sufferings, were meant to create paths of growth and progress for these social groups, for the poor people. Now, how do we understand whether this is happening? After spending thousands and crores, are we reaching the objective that we have designed ourselves? Earlier, what used to happen was that there was planning commission, then came Niti Aayog, which conducts various impact and evaluation reports. They come up with they form a group, they go into the states, they go into the villages, find all the secondary data and the primary data and come up with reports which are shown to the parliamentary groups. Parliament itself forms committees. When there are questions in the parliament, parliament will form committees and review the way the program is being run, review the way the act is being implemented, the social legislation being implemented, and come up with ideas to improve it or answer the questions raised by the opposition. There's also CAG that we know, which does a lot of Comptroller and Auditor General of India, also goes around into the country and works on various programs to understand how the programs are being implemented. Then, of course, we know there is media, which runs around, looks around, understand what's happening on the ground, and talks about it. Maybe through anecdotal stories, but there are ways in which media will present how the programs are being run. There are civil society organizations like ours. There are huge civil society organizations within India, outside India, or even organizations which work across the world. There are organizations which work across the country who take up these kind of studies to show a mirror to the government saying that, look, this is what is happening. One very good example of this are the ASAR reports, which are the reports about the primary education in India, which they come up with very regularly for more than a decade on status of primary education. They go and meet the students directly, understand how they are doing in maths, in basic arithmetic, basic language. So they go and conduct tests, and then they come up with their results every year, which is called as a report, which is a mirror in saying that however number of schools you may have, teacher recruitments you may have, teacher trainings you may have, the final output is to see whether the students are learning. And that is what as a report comes about with. This is a simple example that I have given, but there are several many organizations who come up with on education, on health, on livelihood projects, on water projects. Let's say there have been a lot of check dams. What happened to that? So there is a water users group which works on this. So there are several organizations which do such studies, which are a voice of the people for whom the programs are designed for. And then we know there are network of industries, we know there are associations of various industry groups, and they also conduct their own studies, something like a CMI, it's a monitoring report that is published every year. So these are the kind of works that we get to see to understand the effectiveness or the impact or of the various programs, various development projects taken up by the government. Before social audit came into existence, before we thought of social audit, there were several things which were leading towards it. This is what we understand from hindsight. This is what we learn, that when there was this movement for right to information, mainly Rajasthan and later in Maharashtra, where we said that we want information. Government cannot keep its document with itself. If there is a program of housing, then, and if it is subsidized by the government, we should know who are those beneficiaries, what subsidy did they get, how long did it take for them to get it, did it reach properly, what were the loopholes in the program. So all these questions were asked by citizens, by citizen groups, and government was meant to provide this information. Government was reluctant in various places. Departments were reluctant to share the information that they had. But then this whole process of asking for demanding information led to the idea that we should have a right to information, which means that you and me, any citizens, can approach any government, whether I am a beneficiary or not, whether I stay in that place or not, I can go and ask for information. Like for example, let's say Fasal Bima Yojana, the crop insurance scheme. Do we know in your own village, in your own block, in your own district, how many applied for it, how many got it? We can find out. If you are living in urban areas, right to information can be used to understand whatever is happening around, let's say, street lights or vaccination program for that matter, a COVID vaccination program. We can find out from the concerned authority what are the total numbers, how much did you get, how much did you earn from it, were there any revenue generated out of this. We can ask all these questions as citizen of India. We don't have to even give reasons for why we are asking for it. So this became the first statement saying that we as citizens can demand information from you, and we want to participate in the goings on of the government. The way programs are implemented, let us learn from it. Let us see if we find any gaps in it. We would like to learn, study, and come back to the government saying that, look, things need to be changed, if at all. What is the desired outcome? How do we go towards it? We can have this dialogue with the government, and right to information was the first step towards it. Before that, we were asking for simple things like citizens charter. Like now you see this in most of the government offices. You go to any government offices, there should be a board which tells you what all work can be done here. Like if I go to, let's say, civil hospital, if I go to education department, it should display on a board saying what all kind of services, programs are being run, operationalized by this department, by this place, and what all can I expect from this office. So citizen charter gives me that. Like if you go to a bank, you will see that there is a board which tells you that for a check, you will require so many days. If you want to form a demand draft, it will take so many hours. How did it come out? It came about by demanding citizens charter. Then there were quite a few reports being prepared by organizations like Center for Policy. So there have been very good research institutes who were involved in this kind of policy research to understand the effectiveness of various programs. And this made us realize that if government is spending so many crores of rupees, if the objective is so noble, why are things not happening? Let us study, learn, understand, engage with the government. That was the whole process behind these movements, which in a way were engaging with the government in various media, in various ways. So came the idea of social audit. What does social audit mean? The social, that nomenclature using the word social is very important here, because we know audit is a word which is generally used for financial audits. We know finance audits, we know each organization has a balance sheet being made which is being checked by the auditor. So it is the finances which always get checked. And we know about audit as a finance audit. CAG is also more interested in understanding how the finance is being deployed. But social audit, as the name says, is more to do with the social dimension of the program and auditing the social dimension of that program. That's the whole idea. So there can be social audit of organizations, whoever, public or private. It can be of departments, of government departments, of various government departments, be it primary health, education, Jilla Parishad, or municipal corporation, whichever. Within municipal corporation, we can think about separate departments, and we can think of social audits of those departments. Of various services, like let's say COVID was a service provided, COVID healthcare was a service provided by the government through either municipal corporation hospitals or district hospitals, or even at times by partnering with private hospitals. What happened to that? How was it given? So we can even audit the services, we can audit programs, we can audit health services, we can audit education services. And about these departments and programs being run by this government for the people, we can audit any of this and more if the need be. So when we are trying to understand the social audit of government services and programs, what are we trying to do? Well, we are essentially saying that we should be measuring what is being done, measuring the revenues being spent, measuring the people that we are being catering to, measuring the area that we have catered to, how it is being done. So there has to be proper measuring. It should not be anecdotal. It should not just be the stories about something good and something bad. We don't want to churn out stories only. Stories do play a role, but that's not enough. We need proper measuring of services or programs. What is our understanding? What was the policy behind it? What propelled the whole design of the program? What is the objective of the program? Like, let's say there is an objective of reducing infant mortality. So if you want to reduce infant mortality, what are the kind of programs that we have? Is there a singular program? Is only the ICDS going to work on it? Or is the primary health centers going to work on it? Who? What all constitutes the goal, the policy to reduce infant mortality? We can put all that together and then audit all those set of programs and see whether it really fulfills the objective of reducing infant mortality. This is just an example. We can use this for anything else also. Forest cover. We are saying forest cover has to increase. How will it increase? What kind of measures are being taken either by forest department or social forestry or agriculture department? What is being done? On what area? What happens to that 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line? What kind of money is being spent? What kind of design is being encouraged in various areas? So are people able to participate in this decision making of what happens to the forest where the villages are living near the forest? So there are several questions related to each of the program for which we have to have good understanding, and we have to add to the present understanding of the program by doing the social audit. And all this should ultimately lead to improving the performance of that particular department or that program or that service towards the objective that we've thought about. Another important aspect of social audit is, it being a social audit, is that who benefits? In government jargon, we always use the word beneficiaries. Now, who are the beneficiaries? Who gets the benefit for this particular program? Whom does it lead to? Like many times we see that when there are agriculture programs, when there are subsidies for building whatever or buying some agriculture equipments, does it go to the small and marginal farmers? Does it go to the farmers who belong to the marginalized, vulnerable social groups? Does it go to the women farmers? So these are the questions that we as citizens need to ask. Has the distribution of benefits meant for whatever the program is supposed to do, reaching out to the most vulnerable? Are the poorest of the poor being catered to through this program? Now, these are the kind of questions that can lead to more and more proper social audit in different ways by different people. But we need to remember that it is not an evaluation. Evaluation is by a third party, comes in, does the evaluation, and tells you, whoever is the department, whoever is the organization which is implementing it, they will just tell you, look, these are the things which are working fine, and these are the things which are not so fine, and we need to improve on this, and that's it. So it's a one-time statement being made by a third party. Why do we need a third party? Because we don't want any vested interest while doing the study. We want the study to be as neutral as possible so that all aspects are being looked at with more rigor. Now, in an evaluation, like I said, it is a one-time statement saying that this is happening and this is not happening and this needs to be improved or changed. But social audit is a process. We have to keep doing it again and again and again to bring in that efficiency, to bring in that effectiveness, to improve the performance of that program, of that department, of that scheme, of that service, whatever it may be. So let's not treat it as an evaluation, as if I'm going there and testing something. This is not an exam of any department. This is a participatory, this is understanding in a way where we are together on the same table. It is not you versus me, it is you and me. That is what makes social audit so different and so important. Another important aspect of social audit is that you have to involve all the stakeholders. Now, who could be the stakeholders? Let's say we took an example of infant mortality. Who are all the stakeholders in a program like, let's say, which is meant for providing supplementary food in Anganwadi, or which is supposed to provide vaccination? So there is vaccination, there is supplementary food, there is monitoring of the children who are under 5, under 6 years of age. There is monitoring and supplementary food to the mothers of the young toddlers. So we have to involve all of them. We have to involve the mothers, we have to involve the implementers, the Anganwadi Sevika, we have to involve ANM, we have to involve PHC, we have to involve the district officers, and most importantly, we have to involve the villages. So they have to all come together, the villages for whom the project is meant, the implementers like the Anganwadi Sevika or the Panchayat Samiti, health personnel, health officials, or the district officials, all need to be involved. All need to come up and say, look, these are my difficulties. and this is what needs to be resolved for it to become better. So it's not just pointing fingers. It's not just that I go in a village, do a social audit and say, look, this is not happening, that is not happening, so and so is not working, so and so is not doing it properly. That will not serve the purpose. Unless people who are benefiting from it, whom it is meant for, and people who are implementing it, especially the last mile functionaries, if they sit together, if they can have a dialogue, then we can find answers for it. And that's why it is very important that we involve all stakeholders while doing a social audit. How should it be? Social audit needs to be multi-perspective. The fact that you have different stakeholders in it, stakeholders will come with their perspective. And it is important that they come with their perspective. It is important that all the perspectives are allowed to be vocalized, allowed to be discussed during social audit process. Because a particular official may have some problems in implementing it, but that official is only accused of saying that you are not doing it, will not resolve the issues. So let the officials, let the beneficiaries, everybody talk, let everybody say where the shoe pinches, and only then we will know what needs to be changed, what needs to be fixed. It has to be comprehensive. It cannot look at only one part of the whole program and say that, look, things are just problematic here, everything else is fine. Or it cannot just look at one aspect of the program. It has to look at different programs, different services, the area in which you're working, so that context is also equally important. So it has to be comprehensive, it has to go end to end, it has to look at different aspects, and it has to understand different perspectives. It has to be participatory. Social audit cannot be a social audit unless it is participatory. Participatory by the last mile officials, participation from the beneficiaries, participation from the villagers. I may not have a young child at home, but I'm interested in knowing how Anganwadi is working, how the supplementary food program is working. So I could be there. Participation of any citizen is welcome in a social audit process. It has to be regular. Because if you do it now and then you don't do anything for 2 years, then things go slack. So as far as social audit is concerned, after all these years of experience, now it is said that we should do it every 6 months, especially for the government welfare programs. Let's do it for 6 months, then things can get resolved then and there, and problems don't get straightened out over a long period. The social audit process, after going through the whole process, prepares a report, right? Now that report by definition needs to be in public domain. We are saying it is a social report. We are saying that all citizens can be involved in this. We are saying that it is by the citizens for the citizens. So it has to be in the public domain. Now while in public domain, anybody, you and me, can read those reports. And once the report is prepared, then the concerned authority, it could be the collector, it could be the Jilla Parishad CEO, it could be the health department, education department, whoever it is meant for. That report has to have somebody owning it and taking action based on what the report says. What changes need to be made? What procedures need to be changed? What rules need to be changed? How are we going to deliver this program? What changes are required? Whatever is to be done, that has to be done, and an action taken report is to be prepared. That has to be implemented. If you plan changes, implement it. Write it in the action taken report, implement it, and only after that the next social audit can happen. Also to see whether changes have occurred and have that changes led to more effectiveness and more efficiency in the implementation of the program. After this, we will take a specific example of Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act and understand the social audit process of that program. Thank you.